and confidence in yourself and your skill set, you just don't last long. You know, and that's something that I think is rare.
Yeah. Well, and that's very easy, because I apply that in my field too. People, you can learn the skills; those you can get that. Can you think fast? Can you think? Can you deal and be counted on to just, you know?
You're under a microscope and the clock is ticking.
Yeah.
So, you know, typically, we call it the inverted pyramid. There's a guy on the bottom blowing bubbles, doing his work, and then there is this pyramid, this inverse pyramid of people, both physically topside and, you know, in a capacity of expectations that are above that. You know, nowhere was that more evident. We did some work in the Gulf of Mexico after the hurricane responses, or the Hurricane Katrina and Rita, and there's a lot of down platforms, which were oil platforms that really got pushed over. And the challenge there was that all the lines were still intact, but they're bent over. So there's a lot of stored energy, and they had to kill the wells. You know, they basically had to clip the wells and peel back everything with all the stored energy and pressure underneath it. And so you've got a DP3 Norwegian-built dynamically positioned vessel that's got probably a crew of 50 or 60 on board, and you've got ROV pilots and crews that are standing by, and you've got the insurance and the company men that all have their people there that are working, and you have the company we're working for are well killers, and they've got all their engineers and blowout experts that are on scene, and then we have a saturation diving setup, which has got effectively 16 people topside when you've got 4 guys, you know, divers that are in the system. But at any given time, there is one guy on the bottom working. It's him. He's outside working, and then you've got this whole, you know, project that's going on above him. This whole structure, and it's probably, and the burn rate is probably $250,000 a day, and it's all hinged on the efficiency of that guy.
Wow.
And so, you know, and so there is, you know, I think the guys that are really good at it, they recognize it, but they don't think about it. And whether it's that big of a project, that's kind of one end of the spectrum, or it's another end of the spectrum, which is you got a guy working on a 60-foot table, and he's got, you know, an hour and 20 minutes until if he can't get it done, then we have to splash somebody else. You know, not only are you being watched and guided, but you're running up against the bottom time where you physically, if you can't get it done, then we have to hop another guy. You know, and that's is either a time constraint or a cost constraint. You know, if we did it for an 8-hour day and you don't get it done and we have to hop another diver, then that's we can't. So, you know, so there's these interesting little perspectives that I think our guys get, and we remind them of it in a healthy way to say, look, it's not about, you know, we don't want any hurt feelings report, but this is a profession, and you've got to continually be honing that. You got to be able to think, and again, to your point, you got to be able to think, you got to be able to problem solve. And those aren't always things that are intuitive.
Sure.
You know, it's, and you're by yourself. You know, I always joke that when you have a construction crew and they're pouring asphalt, you see a couple of guys running the graders and a couple of guys running the spreading the asphalt, and other guys leaning on shovels and staring at stuff, and they're working on a construction project. But when we work on a construction project, there's one person that if you need help or leverage, or if you need a hand, there is no hand. It's you. You've got to be able to come to the job site and plan ahead of time, visually be able to understand what you're going to have to do down there, understand some of the challenges, and then get down there and then make it work. And that's a one-man band.
That's wow. Is this a lucrative field?
I think it is. I mean, generally speaking, good divers can make. We're a union company, but good divers can make $120,000 to $150,000 a year. We're pretty fortunate that we do a lot of work, you know, up and down the West Coast and both nationally and internationally. So I think we have a lot more opportunities for guys to travel and make more money. But even if you're a tender, even if you're not diving, you know, I think you can make $75,000 to $100,000 a year, what we call choking a hose, which is being the lead tender. And so yeah, it is. I mean, it's, you know, I think there's an interesting commentary there when we talk about the maritime trade. You heard from the shipyard saying what a good welder can make, and there's a lot of really well-paying jobs that are much safer now than they were 30 years ago, and maybe the perspective on what those trades are, or you know, the safety side of the house. But yeah, it's a very lucrative trade to be in. You know, you can, you know, whether or not it's affordable in this living in the city is a different story. But we all have those challenges. As we're all getting pushed out.
That's for sure.
But yeah, it is. I think guys can make a good. I mean, it's an investment, and again, if you're good at your trade, you'll work forever. There's no shortage of work for good divers.
Yeah, always be in demand. Yeah. So now one other change. So now there are TV shows about, you know, fishing in Alaska and driving trucks and things like this. So it seems like there is a little more greater awareness of fields that didn't exist. I had no idea, you know, things like this. How is that drawing any more people to the profession or not, or
I think
talk about it, or
yeah, you know, clearly there's a lot more exposure to it, and I think that's good to try to draw interest in. One of the, you know, we've always, or at least what I think that one of the pieces of the commercial diving industry that we fought is kind of this idea that, you know, a kid's gonna go to school and he's gonna you know, he's going to travel the world, and he's going to have all this money, and he's going to be looking for trades. It's almost like a Clive Cussler approach. You know, a woman on he's going to be on a sandy beach with a woman on each arm, and you know, and clearly it's not like that, because more likely what it is they're wearing a heavy hat like that, and they're swinging a 20-pound sledge underwater by themselves. And but I think that there's a positive message that it gives exposure to people who would otherwise not have much thought about a very vibrant profession. I think it can send a mixed message, only because a lot of the stuff that's interesting on TV is the sensationalism. And you know, I'm really pleased with you know, the commercial diving industry as a whole has you know, over the last 30 years really professionalized itself. So, you know, we always say that there should be nothing exciting or unplanned on our projects, ever. Because if it is, that's a bad day. So, we're really boring. The work we do is really boring. Because, you know, it's pretty methodical, and there's just usually nothing exciting to go on. But when things are exciting, it makes for great TV. But I think it's a positive spin. I mean, I think the big effort that a lot of, you know, older industries need to do, where there's really a generational gap, is we do need to promote it. And part of the promotion is not always, you know, job reports and, you know, commensurate median incomes that you can earn. You know, that's not grabbing kids. You know, especially when you're on a on-demand generation. You've got to be able to create some excitement and enthusiasm about it. So I think in the long run, I think it's good. You know, salvage work is really exciting. I mean, you know, to me that's the most exciting stuff you could look at, is, you know, here's a situation that is not supposed to be where it's at, and we're the emergency technicians who run in and figure out the solution, because no one else knows what to do. So, you know, that's exciting. That's why I got into the business. I thought, wow, this, you know, how neat is it to, you know, someone, and again, you have to take it with a grain of salt. Someone's having their worst day, and it's an opportunity for us to go and figure out a complex solution to, or an answer to something that's not easily rendered.
That's for sure. So you mentioned that you're trying to expand internationally as well as.
I mean, our core roots. The company was, you know, we started the humble beginnings. We're on Harbor Island. The port eventually kicked us out of Harbor Island, along with many others, and we were able to grab a piece of property right here. But yeah, we've been growing. We have an office in Anchorage, Alaska. We have an office in San Francisco, specifically Mare Island. We have an office in Long Beach. We have a small office in Houston. so we've grown quite a bit, and I think, and then we've also been involved with a number of international projects, mostly in Canada and Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
but we've done some work in South America, we've done some work in the Southeast Asia. We've done some work, a little bit of work in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we've traveled. Part of our mantra is that we kind of travel to where the work is, and I think we've developed a pretty unique name in the international market when it comes to kind of specialty deep diving, whether that's salvage or casualty response, or if it's as I mentioned, the unconventional decommissioning is what we call it, with laid over oil platforms. Without putting too big of a feather in our hat, I think we are one of the preeminent international dive companies to do that work. And so we travel a little bit. We don't have any international offices. We just travel to the project sites because usually it's a niche specific project that comes up, and our name comes up to be an option. I mean, we were fortunate enough to work on the Costa Concordia. We were the only U.S. dive company, or one of the only U.S. dive companies to have people over there for 14 or 18 months. So that was an interesting project from an engineering standpoint. The project itself was, I mean, every salvage project has its uniqueness, but to be part of a very unique engineering effort to right that vessel and refloat it was pretty amazing. We travel. We do work in Mexico. We've done some interesting projects up in Canada, and done some work in the Philippines and Malaysia and some other places. So, and I think that's guys like our I think that helps kind of push ourselves professionally. I think a lot of our management and our supervisors and field crews are kind of driven for the challenge, and so deeper depths or new locations or different type of projects is what really keeps people kind of honed. I mean, there's nothing static, and we're very much a project-based company. So, we start the year not knowing where all the work's coming from. As a matter of fact, it's very infrequently we know where any of the work's coming from, and we employ about 250 full-time employees. So, when you can't point to where all the jobs are going to be by the year end, it means you're kind of a hustler. But it's we view it less a hustler and more of a people are just really driven to want to be part of unique projects, and so we go out and find them.
So you said you worked post Katrina and Rita with what seems like more hurricanes happening. Are you like on speed dial with when things happen? And So we have good connections both domestically and internationally. The two places where we see that type of work is through the insurance channels, mostly that run back through London. On the international market, and then of course there are service providers that we have partnered with over the years that are that we work with in both domestically and internationally when those projects come up. Katrina and Rita was really unique because the way it rolled through. I mean, it was a generational hurricane, and it had the right track, and it knocked down a bunch of old stuff. And so I don't want to say that it's highly unlikely that that'll ever occur again, but it's going to take a very interesting, unique set of circumstances for that large of an effort to be, or that large of an incident with that large of an impact to occur. We see, we do unconventional decommissioning, but it's usually like one or two small platforms. We worked on the back end of Hurricane Katrina for 9 years. Wow.
Or 8 years going from job to job, and we weren't unique. There were other dive companies down in the Gulf of Mexico doing that, but I mean it was a substantial amount of work from 2005 to I think our last project that was connected to that was in the end of 2013. So I mean it was a lot of work. A lot of work, and it forced us to ramp up our capacities to do deep diving, and so it had a pretty interesting impact. So so we're on speed dial. I'm not sure if all the moons would align again, we'd see that type of impact because it was just a huge field and it was to roll right through. But there's a lot of offshore infrastructure out there in the world that again people are not aware of, and it's aging. Just like inland dams and potable water issues that we hear about. You know, those dams were built and locks were built in the, you know, early, or the 1910s, 1920s. Those infrastructures are in place. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. So there's a lot of interesting opportunities out there that people don't, again, they don't probably put their finger on. You know, you see a bunch of oil platforms down, everybody gets upset about the environmental degradation
Sure.
and the oil spill. You know, people really knew the age and the grade out of the internal infrastructure of the western states. If people were concerned about, you know, an oil spill up in Alaska versus turning on their tap water, nothing coming out, it's pretty interesting. And, you know, and there's a lot of wet work and a lot of subsea constructability projects that we're working on right now that are trying to prop those up and get a longer lifespan out of those. I mean, we did a project in one of our vice president of marine construction, Mike Langan. He's a grad from the UW, and you know, we did a project on Cheeseman Dam, which is in Denver, in Colorado, up in the hills. And it's a beautiful dam, and it was built. It's a granite block dam.
Wow.
It was built in I think it was completed in 1910. So you can imagine the valving and everything else on that. You know, 100 years old. And, you know, we're having to put in new valves and new intakes at 200 feet on a dam that was built over 100 years ago. And that's not unusual. You know? That's not something that's unusual for us. So it's a, you know, so for me, being kind of a, you know, guy who likes history, there's a wonderful historical story with our industry and the work that we perform and the work that or the people that we work with, and it's pretty neat.
Wow, that must be just fabulous. And I'm a history nut myself.
Yeah, it's